Mats Diedrichsen. And in case you don't know Mats Diedrichsen, he is a former CMO of Delivery Hero, a very active angel investor, and since 3 years has its own marketing, I would call it agency, Moose and Monsters Marketing. Hi, Mats. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for the intro.
Great to have you with us. So without further ado, I would already hand over the stage to you. And I'm looking forward to learn more about how to build a great company brand. How does good look like? The stage is yours.
Thank you. So I will talk about kind of investing in your company brand and what good looks like. Before I go into it, I just want to kind of give a little bit who I am. I'm Swedish. I live here in Malaga now since 2021, and I'm a big Arsenal fan. So for you who recognize the image, that's when Saka scored a 3-2 goal against Liverpool over the weekend. I'm Swedish. I left Sweden in 2006. I lived in a few places since then. And in the beginning of my career, I worked more in kind of large corporations, first Dell for quite a while, Google, and then I moved in more to startups. I was with Delivery Hero for roughly 5 years. Kind of when I joined they achieved a unicorn status slightly before, through the IPO, achieving a decacorn status and also being listed on DAX in Frankfurt. And since March now, 2020, I'm working as a independent advisor consulting, helping companies with growth and marketing. I would just a small correction. I know it says Moose and Monster Marketing. It's literally just me, as I don't have a marketing agency or something like that. It's just kind of the company name I'm using. So, and if you want to connect with me, you have my LinkedIn profile here, my email as well. So, going into kind of what good branding looks like, I would say, kind of from my experience, there are 3 main components that goes into that. First being the research phase, understanding the market, understanding the customers, getting to figure out who your positioning is, then moving into the actual execution of your brand, the on-brand execution of it, and then also, which is very important, is the measurement. And when you have these 3 pieces together, you will end up in a position which is that you're doing good branding. So I want to kind of now dig into each of these 3 places or the phases. And if we start with research, so research, when I talk about research, I'm talking about market research. And kind of just to give a little here, like depending on how detailed you want to do when you do this research, if you want to go into kind of city level understanding, go into very small customer groups, but normally you would need to have a panel. So essentially the amount of respondents between 2,000 to 4,000 if you do it. Of course, the more you do, the more precise and more kind of detail you can go. But of course, that comes at a cost. When it comes to questions, it's more than these ones I'm mentioning here, but these are the ones I would say is very important for you to understand when you do research. You need to get the demographical questions, and you need to understand from the customers what are the drivers and blockers for them to use, whatever service it is that you're providing. What is, from their point of view, an ideal service? What is the brand perception? Kind of both how you are perceived, how your competitors are perceived. Also understanding the brand funnel. Usually, kind of the brand funnel can, depending on who you ask, might look slightly different. This is the one I always use, which is go everything from top of mind, unaided, aided, consideration, usage, and all the way to loyalty or preference. Again, when you do this research, you can dig into specific customer segments or also how you are comparing to your competitors. And then also kind of have specific questions, kind of maybe how your ads are, how they perceived, how they found out about you. If you're launching a new feature, a new product, you can always also do research to understand kind of price points, what are the features these new products should have, etc., etc. Depending on if you have resources internally or externally, kind of just to give you an idea about this one is, when I worked at Delivery Hero, we had a lot of internal resources, so we would have been at the bottom end of this price range. But also seen if you outsource everything, it can be everything from 10,000 to 50,000 to do this. Price increase, as I mentioned in the beginning, with the size of the panel and also the number of questions. These are the 2 most important variables to essentially where you're going to land up. So this is just the research, kind of just to give you an idea about what are the things you need to start asking when you do the research. And then when you come to the answers back, there's a few things here I want to go through. So the first thing is the brand funnel. Brand funnel is a very important piece of your brand strategy. The brand funnel will allow you to understand for all of the key KPIs, or the key brand KPIs, and how you are doing, but also in comparison to your competitor. And the most important are the ones I mentioned before. So top of mind would be the first brand you think about for a specific category. It might be what is the first brand you think about when it's soda? I'm pretty sure most of the people in the room would think Coca-Cola. Unaided, so it's the first one you think about. Unaided are kind of what are, besides Coca-Cola in this case, what are the other brands without giving them help. Aided being you give them a long list of all of the different brands that there are, and they take the ones they know. And then it goes into consideration, which is, have they ever thought about using your service, to usage, if they do it, and preference, which is if this is the preferred brand for them. So as you can see in the brand funnel, that visually you can see brand A and brand B, and you can see how they're performing on the different KPIs there. But one thing that's very, very important to pay attention to is not only what the numbers are for each of the KPIs, but also what is the conversion rate from them. So one thing you can see in here is that the conversion from aided awareness to consideration is quite similar between them. And the same when it goes from consideration to usage, the conversion rates are not that different between them. But when you're looking at from usage to preference, brand B is performing significantly better than brand A. This is something to look out for. In this case, it might be that you have a worse product market fit. Maybe you have issues with your product. Maybe they have better supply, whatever it might be. But this brand funnel a lot of time can help you to understand where you might have issues in your business and also relative to your competitors. What you also do in the research is you get into a lot of information about customer segments. And from my experience, normally when you do market research and you do the clustering of the different segments, you're going to end up normally somewhere between 5 to 8 segments that's representing a very large portion of the total market. You will look at a bunch of these ones. These are just examples, but kind of demographical questions, understanding what they like, dislike, what they want, what they want to have out of the service, what are the triggers, and so on. These ones of the 5 to 8 customer segments that represent a very big portion of your market. Although it's, in order to be specific, you usually choose something between 1 and 3 of those, and you say these are our target personas. The one here is just a very simple kind of example of a target persona, but it's about like understanding these 3 customer types or customer segments. What are the things that's really important for them? And the customer segments will then guide you when you come into what is your brand positioning, your USPs, and the tone of voice. So if we go into the brand positioning, this is just a very simple example, kind of looking at the automotive industry, when you're looking at price and quality. But when you're looking at your brand positioning, one thing that's extremely important is that it needs to be defendable, and ideally also really setting you apart from competition. You can do this brand positioning in a bunch of different ways, but the most common ways to think about brand positioning is kind of ease of use, price, quality, or choice. But this needs to be based upon what is important for your target personas. So this is one thing I really want to emphasize, is that when you select which are the customers that you want to do, that's when you then start looking at your brand positioning, because your brand positioning needs to be aligned with what is it that your customers or your target customers actually want to have. So if they really care about quality and your positioning is about the lowest price, you have a mismatch between what your customer wants and what you are providing. And this then goes into the next step, which is the more specific one, which is the USPs. I think we all know what USPs are, but again, what's really, really important when it comes to USPs, and I've seen this a few times when it fails, is it needs to be specific. So again, if you're talking about quality, don't just say we have high quality products. Say make a case against competition and makes it memorable rather than just a generic statement. Also, kind of the example I had before is like if customers really care about quality and your USP's price, it might not be the right fit. So make sure you go back to the customer value, what is really important for them. And also don't just say that you are, you know, the cheapest or best quality or the most choice or whatever it is that you where you're landing in your positioning, but give the customers a reason to believe. So if you talk about quality, you can prove it through maybe NPS, maybe you want some awards, maybe customer surveys and how happy your customers are, whatever it is. But what's very important when it comes to your USPs is that a lot of time to give them a reason to believe, more than just saying that you are something that's fantastic. So when you come to the research phase, I would say these are the key things for you to get out of when you do the research. First of all, know your brand funnel, where you have poor conversion rates and how you're relative to your competitors is extremely important to understand. Other one is have a clear understanding of the customer segments, what they want, need, and how they want to be spoken to. Of these segments, which are the target personas and what is the ideal service looks like for them. You know, do they want price? Do they want discounts? Do they want high quality? Do they want speedy delivery? You know, whatever it might be, but have really clear what it is. And then based upon that, have a clear and defensible brand position and USPs that reinforce that position. So that's the first phase, which is kind of to a big extent like a office desk kind of exercise about like understanding you competitors and the customers. What you then need to do next is how do you activate this? And I'm not talking about execution, I'm talking about on-brand execution, because this is extremely important to think about. I don't know if the sound is coming across, but this is so we don't need to go further, but what's important is that, so Talabat, just to give you a bit of background, so Talabat is the online food or the brand, Delivery Heroes brand in the Middle East. It's the biggest online food delivery platform in the Middle East. It's also one of the full stop biggest e-commerce players in the Middle East. But what you hopefully saw here from the first 15 seconds is that when you do this, what's really important is you have really strong branding in your communication. Make sure you have the logos there. Make sure you have, whenever brand colors, you have a lot of visual cues throughout the whole ad. So that's very important to reinforce that they know who it is that's actually doing the ad. Next thing is ensure the message is clear. Like in this case, for this specific one, is we deliver anything quickly. So that's their USP in terms of deliver not only if you want food, but literally whatever you want, flowers, medicine, whatever it might be. You also may have that make sure that the communication strengthening your brand positioning and also the tone of voice speaks to your target customer. So that's also extremely important that you have. And lastly, make sure you have a clear call to action. That might be order now, download the app, etc. So make sure when you've done the research, you know your customers, you know what they want. Make sure that your TV spot really go in line with that. Because there's also one thing I've seen quite a few times that people go through doing the research. And then when it comes to, because it has a tendency, but TV being the main channel to communicate your brand, that it kind of just falls apart, that the TV spot just ends up being something completely different monster from what you actually research it. So that you need to have that clear consistency and alignment between these two. The other thing, which is very important, is that brand building is done throughout all of your contact points. So in this case, again, I'm using Talabat here as an example, is that it's everything from the in-app experience to the TV ads to the post-purchase experience. It can be how you're dealing with customer service. If you have an unboxing experience, make sure that one is great. In this case, for Talabat, it's like all of the delivery riders. This is actually how they are branded. So you can see like the branding is really consistent throughout the experience that customers have with the brand. One thing I would also kind of call out here, which is less important or less impactful is advertising for kind of very high intent traffic like Google search. I'm sure there are examples which kind of goes against what I'm saying now, but most of the times I've seen is that trying to kind of pushing your USPs or whatever in kind of PPC ads as an example usually don't have a tendency to work, and if anything, a lot of times they actually have had a worse experience or worse performance. So you're essentially decreasing your performance from those specific channels. So also be like pragmatic around it, that kind of if you see Google search as an example, significantly better performance with just doing your normal PPC or SEM tactics, stick with that. Don't kind of be dogmatic around your brand and forcing to change ads, for example, based upon that. And then also one thing, and I'm using here example from again from my time at Delivery Hero. So what I'm having here is like one thing also you need to think about is that your story or your USPs might evolve over time. So I'm probably not going to play all of this. The first one here is a very old TV ad. So in the early days, so the TV spot was about essentially explaining the category almost. It was very educational focused. It was, as you saw in the ad, it was like click here in the web on the website, click here, then you get the food delivered. So it was a very educational focused TV spots. And also it was a lot of about pushing trust, because a lot of times if you don't have a high category awareness or awareness about your brand, a lot of times you need to kind of make sure you have trust elements. So in this case, they had trust elements around payment options, number of restaurants, or it's easy to use service. And if you're looking then fast forward a few years, so they changed a lot, because one thing was we made sure we had stronger branding. So the logo is in every single pixel of the ad is visible one way or another. We were pushing much more at that point the app, because it was the convenience of using the app and the stickiness if you get them to download the app. And then also was about showing variety. No, it's not only pizzas, but it's all types of dishes, cuisines that you can get. And also kind of later on in the ad, you will see different occasions when you're actually using the service. So what I just want to say here, like also understand that the story that you're doing, it over time it evolves. And also, even when it comes to your USPs, that they might become hygiene factors over time. This is an example, the number of restaurants that you have on your platform. I don't think there anyone in this category that talks about the number of restaurants or whatever that have. Like people just expect, if I download one of these apps, I will have everything that's needed. It's a hygiene factor. It's almost like if you don't have it, you can't play. So, but back in the days, that was actually a USP, that you can go to this website or download this app and you have over 2,000 restaurants to choose between. And I was like, that was amazing. So just be aware that your story might evolve over time, and so might your USPs over time. And then another thing that kind of is very common, or that's almost always up for discussion, is as you're going through this, you do the research, you're figuring out all of your customer segments, etc., etc. Very common comes up: should we do a rebranding on the back of this? Because it might be something that's different. And if you're looking at rebranding, it's kind of two things from a marketing point of view. So one is the visual, kind of just the logo, and the other one is the name. Of course, you can do both, of course, as well. But if you start with the rebranding, and both of these examples is actually Swedish examples. So I would do a visual rebranding only if the brand it is misrepresented, or if you need to modernize the brand, like you need to evolve it to become a bit more contemporary. And it's also way less risk. And this is an example that was done just a few weeks ago. So Greenly, if you don't know them, it's a company that does essentially help you with your electricity bill. So you can hook up to them, you can see how you consume electricity, and can help you kind of save money. But greenly is essentially green. In Swedish, it's almost like green electricity. And they even have the color green in them. Plus, as you all know, like green has a tendency to be a very positive color for things that are environmentally friendly. So, but for some reason, they decided to go with a blue color. So it was a very easy kind of decision for them to say, like, actually, it should be green. So that's one kind of visual that kind of made sense. The other one is from Delivery Hero. It's actually online pizza, again, Swedish example. Online pizza was founded by Niklas Östberg back in 2007, if I remember it. So it was even before Delivery Hero. And back then in Sweden, you literally could only get pizzas delivered. Like if you wanted sushi or something like that, you needed to go there yourself and pick it up. But if you wanted delivery, it was literally only pizza. So they were called online pizza. Over time, that changed, and now you can get whatever you want. Actually, and you can get medicine delivered to you if you want to, and so on. So a few years ago, we took the decision to rebrand, because the name in this case it's not representing what we were. And it can even be confusing for the customer, because we even had that people thought like, oh, online pizza, that means I can only order pizzas. So these are the two occasions where I think a rebranding makes sense. But and I would want to call it out here is I would only do rebrandings when it's really needed. So not because you did now market research and you found something, like just look into it if it's really needed, because it's more than often it's quite a bit of cost associated with that, changing everything from product to advertising to new kind of look and feel and so on. It is expensive, so only do it if it's really needed. So when it comes to the execution, and what I would say is really important when you get into the execution of your branding is communication needs to be 100% aligned with your brand position and what speaks to your target customer. It's incredibly important. If you don't do that, you're in trouble. You need to ensure your brand is consistent throughout all of the customer touch points, not only advertising. So when you do this, you need to think about, it's not only about like what you say in the TV ad, it's what you have on all of your other advertising, how customer service is speaking to your customers, and so on and so on and so on. Make sure your communication is really easy to understand, like so the USPs comes across. It's to the point. It's clearly branded, so they know who is the sender of your advertising, and that it has a very good CTA, or it has clear CTA. Download the app, order now, whatever it is that you want them to do. And then also be prepared to evolve your communication, kind of as your category awareness increases. For some people, this is relevant, for some it's not. And also as your customer needs changes, like they will change, and they're constantly changing. So sometimes your USPs will over time become hygiene factors. It's not always the case, but sometimes that's the case. And then last thing, only rebrand if it truly add value. And I would also say only do it rarely. I've been in one place where I think over a 3.5-year period was 4 changes to the visual brand. And it's not good. So just do it very rarely and when it's really needed. And then the last thing. So first you've done research, you're on to executing it well. It's all perfectly aligned. You need to make sure you have the measurement in place as well. And there are kind of a few here to think about. So one is the brand trackers. Do them either half yearly, like if you can afford it, and it makes sense for you, I would do it minimum half yearly. Some do it quarterly, some monthly. I even know some companies, they actually have it just running constantly. And this is to understand how you and your competitors' brand KPIs evolve over time. So the specific here that usually you look at is like the brand funnel and the conversion rate of each of these stages. So what you want to see is as you kind of do your branding, as you improve it, you should see the brand funnel metrics to improve. Then when it comes to track the offline channels, because a lot of times investing into brand do involve investing into offline channels. The one that's normally the most material is TV. And there's a few different ways to do it. So media mix modeling, it's it's expensive and it's not always accurate. So it's very important that if you go down the route with media mix modeling, you have someone that really knows what they're doing. But when you get it right, it gives you a much more holistic understanding of your return on investment, because it takes into account all types of factors. That's also not only what you are doing, but also what happens with, for example, how competitors are investing, how the weather is, external factors, and so on. Other to look at is exit poll. Like, again, if you have an exit poll or some of the post-purchase survey, that can be a very easy way to, first of all, implement and measure. To just understand, if you start doing, for example, TV, and you look at how many people saying that they first heard about you through TV, you should see that increasing as you increasing spend on the TV channels. Another ways to do it is pre and post analysis. Of course, only possible if you increase and decrease spend continuously, and allow you to see how spend impact your business KPIs. The counterfactions, again, this is only possible if you can create test and control groups. Sometimes you can do it depending on the markets, sometimes you can't. But what's important is that you understand what success looks like, at least directionally. So make sure you have the baseline in place before you start spending. So that might be, make sure you have your brand funnel in place, that you have your exit poll in place, that you have your pre and post analysis set up in a good way. So when you start spending, you will know if it works. So kind of understanding what success looks like, what are the KPIs it needs to move, and make sure you have the baseline in place is really, really important. And this is one place where I've seen also a lot of times failing, is that people, they go off, they do the research, they do the planning, and then they just go live. And then 2 months later, the questions are like, okay, what was the impact from this? And because they didn't think about this upfront, it becomes really hard to do that afterwards. So make sure you have that in place. And one thing I also would really want to emphasize is, if you don't see an impact very quickly, and when I talk about impact here, I'm talking about kind of the North Star KPIs, whatever it might be, new customers, new signups, whatever it might be. But if you don't see impact, I'd call it very quickly here, but like within weeks, probably not 1 or 2, but maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks, don't be afraid to pivot, because most likely something is off. It might be how your TV ad is done, that do you have a good alignment between your target customers and your TV ads. But don't go down the route, which I've seen a few times, where people saying, it's good for brand. So essentially, you don't see any impact on the business, but of some mysterious way, it's good for brand. Like I personally never bought into that, and it's very rare I've seen that being the truth as well. So a lot of times, if you don't see an impact fairly quickly, it's like within weeks, most likely something is off with your approach. So be quick. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to quickly to react on that one. So to summarize it, first, understand your customers, what they want, and how you can fulfill those needs. Be aligned with your positioning and USPs across all touch points, and ensure you have a baseline going into your brand investment and understand what success looks like. Usually, as I said, like the North Star KPIs, whatever it is, sales, revenue, new customers, whatever it might be. And if you have these in place, like you have your research, your on-brand execution, and your measurement, very often you will see a good return on your investment. And that's it. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mats. That was really insightful, and I felt you were speaking of experience and the long road you're coming from. I'm currently checking if there are any questions in the chat, but if not, I think the people had the chance to take a screenshot of your email address and also how to reach you. And thank you so much for joining us. To everyone in the audience,